What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today we're going to be talking about a game we're all waiting so desperately for, Elder Scrolls 6. It's a game that, for me, will probably be the most exciting game release in my entire life, and after the trailer shown at E3, we know it's definitely coming. But when? However long it takes, my priority is for the game to be good, and I'd much rather wait a little longer for a polished product than get a rushed game early. There are many aspects of Elder Scrolls 6 that we want to be executed well, and if you've been following our channel for long enough, I'm sure you've realized this. We've done multiple ideal Elder Scrolls 6 videos based on different settings, we've done follow-up discussions on individual topics, and in 2018 we started our series 5 Things We Want in Elder Scrolls 6. In this video, I want to follow up on a topic discussion in part 8 of that series where I talked about boss battles and how they could be performed. I recommend watching part 8 to hear of a really sensational boss battle that I came up with, as I won't be repeating the entire setup for that in this video. Instead, I want to give you a variety of boss battles I came up with, describing them in detail and really stirring your imagination to think about what's possible in the next Elder Scrolls main title. Let me know what you think and even try coming up with your own boss battles in the comments section. But first, let's talk about why good boss battles are so important. Without a doubt, it's not the most important concern for Elder Scrolls 6, but it's still something I'd love Bethesda to focus on more. Simply put, good boss battles are extremely fun. They can really spice up an otherwise generic location or quest, making it very memorable. They can provide for more enemy variety in both enemy aesthetic and playstyle, and they can even increase opportunities for more unique weapons and armor. This is because in the pursuit of making bosses more unique, designers can create unique weapons and armor specifically for them, which change the way they play. An example would be Mirak's staff, which he uses against you during the Apocrypha Spire battle. You don't just find this weapon in a chest or on the ground, instead you're fighting a very unique boss who starts using a staff to spray writhing tentacles all over the ground, which will stagger and poison you. As I mentioned, I came up with a boss battle in part 8 of our 5 Things We Want in Elder Scrolls 6 series. It served as an example of how a unique weapon could have been given to a boss. This boss battle was actually to address basically 2 issues. Firstly, that so many boss battles in Skyrim were dragons or just dragon priests who were cool but could have been switched out for more unique encounters, and secondly, that unique weapons could have been shown off to the player in a flashier way by giving them to bosses. So the boss battle I came up with was one involving a necromantic lich. He would appear as an old, feeble man, wrapped in pieces of black tattered cloth, with bits of normal skin and flesh on his body, but then in other places, such as his ribcage, there would be no organs or flesh, just sections of revealed bones. He was more or less my idea to replace Zakrisos, the dragon priest you battle in Bloodscar Barrow. I suggested giving him the Bloodscar blade and making his eyes glow the same color of its energy. It's a quick example to explain the idea that this would be so much better than just finding the sword on the floor like you do in the Dragonborn DLC. His first attack would be a power attack from far away, causing a beam of red energy to come straight at you. He would have 50% faster movement speed too, an eerie contrast to his frail aesthetic. The reason I like this as a boss battle is because it ticks all the boxes. Aesthetically, he is unique. He has a unique weapon that not only looks unique, but acts in a unique way. He would have more of a unique playstyle, as it's not often you encounter an enemy with such high movement speed, and at that, you've never encountered a two-handed warrior who can also shoot out ranged attacks from their sword. As a lich, he'd likely have necromantic minions as well, and could interact with his environment in a unique way. Perhaps he uses the sword's ranged energy attack to smash down tombs which are built up into the walls, and then he reanimates the skeletons inside. When I wrote the part 8 video, I imagined him moving fast due to his special ritual which made him a lich, but it would also be cool if when you killed him, he had a unique enchanted ring that increased movement speed by 50%, but perhaps it has a drawback where you take 30% more damage, meaning you'll need to use your speed to avoid attacks in battle or you'll suffer big time. As I said, a boss battle like this pretty much ticks all the boxes, and while Skyrim did have heaps of cool boss battles, it's not like boss battles were a problem in Skyrim at all. There's definitely room for more potential. In Elder Scrolls 6, I want lots of truly unique boss encounters, more quantity and quality. A unique enemy with unique gear interacting with their environment with something even just slightly unique about their playstyle. You can probably tell that unique is a recurring theme here. Alright, with the explanation for how I like boss battles to be executed and why they're important to a sensational Elder Scrolls 6 covered, let's run through some cool examples. Elder Scrolls 6 is most likely going to be set in High Rock, Hammerfell, or both based on the trailer, so I've come up with examples for these provinces specifically. If we look at High Rock, it would be really awesome if there was a boss battle against a king. Not just any king, however, but a king with a dark secret that you won't fully uncover until and unless you fight him. So if Elder Scrolls 6 is set in High Rock, part of the story could involve siding with certain kingdoms and making a big political impact through your decisions. You might end up creating alliances between some kingdoms, favoring some over others, and perhaps going to war with certain kingdoms, succeeding in a complete takeover. So this boss battle would be against a specific king, the King of Gehenna, and it only goes down if you choose to take over his kingdom. The king would be a very interesting and mysterious man, and you'd know this already through dealing with him in the main story, be it by originally helping him, or just by asking him many questions when you first meet him, and or from attempted discussions of alliances and making peace during political negotiations that you had to previously attend. You could have done some side quests for his court mage and learnt some info about the king, or maybe you've just heard the town citizens say some odd things about him. For example, when walking through the outskirts of the city near poorer farm areas, you might hear two workers exchange some words with each other. One might say, "I hadn't seen the king in nearly 4 years until he finally decided to grace us with his holy presence." The other replies, "I actually went right past him just a year ago when he left to visit other kingdoms. Caught a not too pleasant smell, actually. The man smells like a farm animal." To which the first worker responds, "Weird guy. And I thought royalty was supposed to bathe every day." While visiting the castle in Gehenna, completing side quests for various characters, you could have done some tasks for the leader of the city guard. Perhaps as a really basic task, you're sent to a mine to gather ore and other resources to help make repairs to the guard's armor. It might be mentioned that a lot of it got damaged during the latest tournament, an annual event held by the king where the guards of the city compete against each other in duels, fighting with blunted swords to see who is the most capable in one-on-one battle. When you inquire about the winner, the guard captain says, "The king won. Actually, he wins every year, although don't believe the rumors that it's rigged in his favor to please his ego. The king is a true warrior, a master with a sword, possessing not just a tactical mind, but a powerful and agile body. I've honestly never seen such rapid reflexes in a man." It would also be known that the king suffers from some kind of foreign illness that only his court mage knows how to address. The court mage would accompany him everywhere, just in case the king felt too sick to function, although that would be a pretty rare occurrence. It could happen during peace negotiations held in his own castle. The negotiations could have finished officially, and the King of Gehenna might suddenly feel a bit nauseous, interrupting the formalities of the peace talks to say, "It is sad we couldn't come to an agreement we all were happy with. I'd love to stay seated for the closing words and to mingle afterwards, but my sickness ails me." The timing is impeccable, as always, and he gets up and leaves the room with the mage, heading into his quarters and locking the doors behind him. So you'd battle the king only if you decided to take over Gehenna. It would be a massive city war zone, like an enhanced version of the Whiterun battle, and as you breach your way into the city walls and slaughter a path through the streets, you finally get to the castle. Upon entering, you must fight off a group of guards, making your way to the king's hall. Here he sits on his throne, clad in the most regal armor, like a set of steel plate from Skyrim, but so shiny you'd think it was made from silver. A crimson cape would hang from his back, and he would be surrounded by an entourage of fighters. There would be 2 standard guards closest to you and furthest from him, then 4 highly trained guards closer to him, a specialist team designed as the king's bodyguards, one being the leader of the city guard you may have spoken to. The king's court mage would also be present. The standard guards would appear as any other in the city, but the highly trained ones would have the same crimson cape as the king, and wear a distinct pair of pauldrons, ones with shoulder guards which bear the city sigil upon them. The court mage would be casting elemental damage spells from one hand and wielding a staff in the other. This staff would actually deal poison damage, shooting out small but very rapidly traveling green orbs of light. The king might get up and smugly say, "Meet me in my quarters afterwards," to his mage and leave the room. Here you would face against the total of 6 guards, 2 normal, 4 advanced, and the court mage. This would be an epic boss battle of its own, especially considering there's a war zone outside and infrastructure everywhere would be getting damaged. After defeating these opponents, you take the key off the court mage's body and use it to unlock the king's room. Inside, you fight the king, sword raised, ready to battle. His room would be very large and super lavish, easily having more than enough space to swing around a sword and have a big battle. Fighting through his room, the king really shows off the ferocity you've heard about. However, once you finally wear down his health bar, he becomes unkillable, moving abnormally fast and fleeing through a a secret passageway behind one of the curtains. You pursue him and eventually find yourself in a secret room. Bloody claw marks are everywhere, and a variety of alchemical implements and instruments are laid around the room, as well as pots of ingredients. The room is lit by torches, and in the middle there's an extremely sturdy looking cage. You run towards the king, but unexpectedly to you, he begins to transform. He lets out a horrid screech as if he is in intense pain, and then begins shapeshifting. He emerges roaring as a wereboar, with a full bar of health and a whole load of rage. Now you must defeat a wereboar. The king's true secret has been revealed, and one of a few rare opportunities for you to become a wereboar is presenting itself. As you fight him, you may catch his disease, or you may not. It depends how much you're willing to risk exposure to his damage. This would provide for an awesome boss battle, and after you defeat this king cursed with lycanthropy, you may discover a variety of journals written by the court mage, laying amongst the alchemical gear. It details the king's experience with ruling the kingdom while battling this disease, gives you the backstory of how he caught it, and explains why he doesn't smell too good no matter how much he bathes. It might mention that the mage is working on creating a powerful perfume to block the stench. It also explains how his sickness is obviously the wereboar curse, but says he can feel it coming on well in advance, by about a whole hour. This leads him to ask the court mage for help, which involves locking him in the cage in the secret room and letting him smash against it furiously until he finally reverts form. Overall, I think this boss battle is super sensational for a few reasons. Firstly, it would be a wicked climax to a city siege. Secondly, it's a really cool secret that would make sense in retrospect, and you'd only discover it if you specifically choose to take over Johanna. Otherwise, the room to the king's quarters are permanently locked. You also get to battle an entourage of specialized foes in the king's hall before you meet him in his quarters, and you get to experience his skill as a fighter in both human form and wereboar form. You also get the chance to become a wereboar by exposing yourself to the disease, plus you can take his super unique shiny armor from his corpse. This battle ticks all the boxes, and I think it's just so much cooler than just another dragon, or if the king was just a standard mortal who surrenders like Jarl Balgruuf did in the battle for Whiterun. One of the reasons this boss battle is also good is because there's more of a story to the boss. While the dragon priests of Skyrim have stories, they're not always super interesting, and we don't know the detailed story of most of the dragons, really. So with a really cool High Rock boss battle out of the way, let's head deep beneath the sands of Hammerfell. Here I think a really good boss battle could involve the lore of the Regatta, that is, the name given to the Yakutan warrior wave that sailed from Yakuta to Tamriel. One of them, known as Frandar Hunding, was a Yakutan warrior prince and the most skilled sword singer and master Ansei in recorded history. He was one of the first Yakutans to settle in Hammerfell, and he is renowned for creating the Way of the Sword. Anyways, when he arrived, Frandar and the Yakutans discovered a huge population of goblins, part of the Flint-Tooth tribe. Unlike the goblins you may have encountered in Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, these goblins were massive, around 8 feet in height, and incredibly vicious warriors. Instead of trying to exist peacefully alongside these goblins, Frandar rallied his army to annihilate them. Hunding met his demise against these powerful goblins in one of the bloodiest battles of the campaign. However, he did wipe out a massive amount of them, and many believe that the goblins of Stros Makai were banished beneath the earth because of him. While he died trying to eliminate the goblins, Frandar's son, Devad, took over his position and finished the fight, slaying the goblins and their mighty war chief. It is said that the goblin spirits were bound to Hunding's watch in the Alakir, and that they helped to test pilgrims hoping to comprehend the trials of the Regatta. Anyways, this lore would be explored during a quest in Elder Scrolls 6 if it was set in Hammerfell, but I think it would be really neat if the remains of a group of these giant goblins, perhaps including the war chief, were discovered deep down in an underground cavern. A necromancer visited these caverns, and you'd be sent to kill him as a side quest. The quest giver would not know the goblins were in the caverns, but simply knows a necromancer has been sighted coming in and out of the entrance and is probably up to no good. In the room with the goblins, you would be able to find the necromancer's diary, which would detail his plans leading up to his death. Turns out the necromancer discovered the remains of ancient giant goblins and brought them back to life using some kind of soul transference. However, in reviving the war chief, the necromancer must have underestimated the great power required, as he died by giving too much of his life force in the process. So his soul is imbued in the ancient Goblin warchief, who was once slain by the Yakutans, but the necromancer's mortal form is no more. You might be able to find his dead body still in its black necromancy robes, or you might even walk into the room as the necromancer's final life force leaves his body, and you see the Goblin warchief prepared on an altar come to life as the necromancer falls down lifeless. The diary would explain the process of revival the necromancer was trying to use, and I think it would be really cool if it was kind of Egyptian inspired. Imagine the goblins look like the goblins you see in Oblivion, except over 8 feet tall, with pieces of their body wrapped in bandages. They'd have an ancient mummified vibe, and the Goblin warchief would be a foot taller than the rest and much more muscular. His animated but rotting corpse would be crawling with a species of scarab beetles that eat decaying flesh. He would have pieces of bronze metallic armor in addition to the bandage wraps, and one of the bandages would be wrapped around his eyes, which in his reanimated state he doesn't need to see. You wouldn't be able to obtain this armor as it would be scrappy and fitted to his large goblin-like frame. However, you would be able to get his weapon, a scimitar of the same bronze color, which is statistically the same as a normal scimitar, but swings 15% faster and can still be enchanted. This would lead the goblin to have an unexpectedly high DPS when you fight him, and just being a goblin, he would attack you with agile leaping strikes, covering lots of distance due to his large body too. The goblin would also use a circular bronze shield inscribed with ancient symbols, small compared to the goblin's body but of normal proportion when equipped by you. Another example for Hammerfell I could quickly recite was mentioned in part 3 of our 5 things we want in Elder Scrolls 6 video. I was talking about unique creatures, not boss battles, but I had this idea of a massive boss battle with a gigantic sandworm. You'd occasionally hear rumors from locals in a certain village near the Alakir Desert that somewhere out there in the sands there's a monstrous queen sandworm. Going with the idea that there could be standard sandworm creatures in an Elder Scrolls 6 Hammerfell, this beast would be 5 times bigger than the normal ones. It's said to have skin the color of blood, although a lot of people discard the rumors as fairy tales. In fact, one member of the village might make a strong argument to you, saying that the village elder, generations ago, created the story just to keep children from wandering astray into the sands. The creature would have a special Redguard name, and it would have a mythological feel to it. You'd never actually see it until you visit around level 20 or so, and then venture out to the isolated desert area near this one specific village. The screen would begin to shake and your character would stagger backwards. To your disbelief, a piercing screech bellows from under the sand, sending a huge pile of it upwards as the monster tears out from under the surface. This giant reddish beast would be an extremely daunting opponent, and its playstyle would involve it diving in and out of the sand, with waves of regular sandworms coming to its aid. The beast would have a special ranged attack where it spits at you and actually absorbs health if you're unlucky enough to get hit. After killing the monster, you might find a unique stone on its corpse, which you take back to the village. After being sent to speak with the local town mage, who specializes in a strange tribal magic, she identifies its potential origin. This begins a quest where you must travel to a variety of locations, tracking down an evil wizard who is trying to harvest these rare stones to turn normal desert worms into these massive red ones in a special ritual. The quest could end with you fixing the glowing stone to an amulet, which gives you the ability to absorb 5 points of health from every attack you land on an enemy. It may only be 5 points of damage, so it's not that powerful, but remember, it goes to your health bar. But the main advantage here is that it affects all of your attacks, be it with bow and arrow or a melee weapon, and would stack on top of any already existing enchantments. It could also affect spells as well, but obviously not spells that do damage per second, like Wall of Frost, otherwise it would be too overpowered. This boss battle is cool. It would be super memorable because the boss is definitely unique and fights with a unique attack, and you get a neat unique reward for your efforts. Now let's go through one final boss battle I came up with, this one taking us back to High Rock, land of the Bretons. So High Rock has a lot of mountainous areas, but also plenty of woodlands and more classical forest settings. It goes without saying it's going to be a lot more similar to the environment of Cyrodiil and Skyrim than a place like Hammerfell. Here I thought it would be really cool if we encountered some sort of mystic forest dweller, a mage who lives out in nature, using magic to heal themselves and control their environment, practicing alchemy to make potions and poisons, and practicing archery to hunt game, all these skills being useful for the mystic's survival. This mystic would be a female who has spent much of her time studying Spriggans. In fact, this boss battle was inspired by Drew's Spriggan lore video on the channel, which I highly suggest you watch if you haven't seen it yet. So obviously there's not enough lore out there to understand how this would really work, but I'd love to see this mystic, nature-living Breton woman become so obsessed with Spriggans that she tries to become one. She could could have a cabin in the woods, and inside it looks small and innocent, but in the basement there's an experimental lab. Imagine something that looks like the lab at the top of Fyke Isle Tower in The Witcher 3. The basement would be incredibly scary, and you'd end up here on a quest where you were sent to the forest searching for missing travelers. To your shock, the travelers are laid out on benches, their wrists and ankles chained down and clamped, their bodies lifeless and mutilated, with holes where their hearts should be, and taproots and other alchemical ingredients laying around the room. It looks like whoever did this was doing some sort of Briarheart-inspired ritual, but instead of using a Briarheart flower, they were using a taproot and using some other kind of magical technique. There were also special symbols carved into the now dead traveler's skin. Here you would be able to find diaries outlining the Mystic's crazy experiments. There would not only be large cauldrons and alchemy lab equipment fixed into the walls and floors, but also enchanting tables and enchanting equipment such as soul gems. Anyways, one of the diaries mentions a grove the Mystic would be heading to become one with her Spriggan brethren. You get a map marker and head there. Entering the grove, you're met with a group of Spriggans who are a tough enough battle by themselves, but as you head deeper, you will spot the mysterious woman. Something's not right about her, obviously. She has a taproot lodged in her chest, glowing bright green, and the same symbols you saw carved into the bodies in her cabin are carved into her own skin, except instead of being bloody scars, they're also emanating the bright green light. She would have vines wrapped around her neck like some sort of necklace, and she'd have bits of greenery like pieces of bark growing from parts of her skin, looking more like a Spriggan from Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, but still significantly more human, with normal hands and the like. The Mystic would let out an eerie scream, yelling, "Begone, invader, the forest is mine now." This would turn into a big Grove-style battle, where she uses Spriggan-like powers such as turning invisible to run away, while constantly bringing in waves of mind-controlled animals such as bears, wolves, and boars to fight you. Unlike a Spriggan, however, she will still have access to her mortal skills, such as using her bow, which she will rapidly shoot at you as she moves around. It will deal shock damage as she enchanted the bow herself, so you'll want to be careful. She'll also have her normal magic such as flesh spells to protect her, healing spells to bring her health back, and even shock destruction magic, so she's a true foe to be feared. Very versatile and very aesthetically distinct. After defeating her, you'll be able to take her bow and her necklace, which work as a powerful combo when used together. The bow would do a certain amount of shock damage, but also 10% more damage per animal or creature that is hostile to the target. The necklace would appear as a brown vine amulet, simply two thin basic vines entwined around each other, glowing a bit with that same eerie green. This would give the wearer a 35% chance for a creature or animal to come to your side, proccing as they first turn hostile towards you. So they either turn hostile and stay hostile, or there's a 35% chance they turn hostile for a second, but then just become part of your team. Once they die, they're gone, and if you go into a city, they disengage and run off, but until then, they'll actually follow you around, even if there's 4 of them. Obviously, standard creatures like wolves and bears aren't super powerful, but it's still pretty useful, and will increase your bow damage due to the enchantment. I would say that the necklace probably wouldn't be able to affect certain creature types, which would just have to be on a case-by-case basis decision made by Bethesda. For example, really strong creatures like giants might not be able to be turned. Anyways, this boss battle again ticks the boxes: unique enemy, unique playstyle, unique gear, and a fun environmental battle during a quest with an interesting story and a cool character. Very memorable. So there you have it, folks. Good boss battles did occur in every Elder Scrolls game so far, but I'd love even more of them in Elder Scrolls 6. They incentivize all the unique gear, they spice up your playthrough massively, and they make you feel more accomplished and surprised. What strange foe are you going to encounter next? You won't be quite sure, but you'll definitely be excited. Anyways, I think this is a desire most people would agree on, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What kind of boss battles do you want to see? And what province would they go best in? Did I leave out any more reasons as to why boss battles make the game experience so good? Let me know. Social media links are in the description. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this creative piece as much as I enjoyed writing it and thinking up all these encounters. My name is Michael, thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.